Okay. Hello, good afternoon from Germany. My name is Wolfgang Krell, and I'm member of the board of IAVE and executive director of the Volunteer Center in Augsburg here in Bavaria. And I say welcome to everybody on behalf of IAVE, International Association of Volunteer Efforts, who was organizing those webinars together with colleagues from all around the world, I would say, and just to give support to your special situation in the labor states of the Ukraine or in the Ukraine or in former Soviet states. And just to give you support in this crisis situation. So that is our, we try to give you more knowledge about volunteer management and times of crisis. I think that perhaps you have more experience than we all in the other countries, but that is just a first step to get in contact and to try to help you in your special situation as volunteer managers in this crisis, actual crisis. So welcome on behalf of IAVE to those 5 webinars we have planned in the next 5 weeks. I say welcome especially to Jessica Hahn, who is organizing it from the IAVE office in Washington, DC, to Leora from Israel, and to Anna from Pista Magica, that because she will do the first webinar and online training here today. So welcome all my colleagues, and thank you very much for your support and help to organize all this. Thank you.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. Thank you, Wolfgang, and thank you, Jessica. If you speak Russian, you can change your translation channel, okay? Below all the photographs of everyone, you will have a bar with some options, okay? And one of them will say translation or something like that. And you can just click there and choose the Russian option. Is that okay for everyone? Yeah. If you have some doubts, you can just write it on the chat and we will try to help you. Okay. So let's start. So my name is Anna and I work in Pista Mágica. It's where we are a volunteer school in Portugal. I am a doctor and I've done some volunteering abroad. One of them with refugees in Greece. And today we will be talking about assessing the situation and the needs of refugees in order to help you coordinate efforts in your context. But first, we will try to understand what's happening in each person's reality, in each person's country and city. Okay, so I will ask you to choose. You will have the rooms in Zoom, the breakout rooms. Okay, it's in the bar below everyone's photographs too, and I will help you and I will ask you to choose the room with your main language. Okay, if you speak English, please go to the English one. If you only speak Russian, please go to the Russian one. And you will have 15 minutes to share in group what's your current situation. So what are the main challenges you are having in your reality, okay? And how to cope with them. Hi everyone, welcome back. Are you able to listen to the Russian translation? Yeah? Has everyone chosen the Russian channel? Yeah? Thank you, Irina. Your feedback is really useful. Okay, can anyone from the group share here what you've talked about? Just the main points, main difficulties, the context of most of the people that shared something. Can someone please volunteer?
Да, мы можем поделиться, о чем мы говорили в группе. К сожалению, нам немножко не хватило времени, чтобы поделились все. И в основном мы успели проговорить про сложности и проблемы, с которыми столкнулись волонтерские центры в Украине. Да, и основные проблемы, которые выделяли координаторы, это первое, с одной стороны, то, что была потеря в волонтерах в количестве, да, потому что люди уезжали, волонтеры уезжали, и количество падало. Да, но с другой стороны мы говорили о том, что качество увеличивалось. Да, вот Харьков рассказывал пример, что у них осталось мало волонтеров, но это очень качественные люди. То есть вроде как работа дальше идет. Еще мы говорили о такой проблеме, как сейчас недостаток ресурса, не волонтерского, а ресурса для обеспечения волонтерской деятельности. Например, бензин, например, какое-то обеспечение для волонтеров, то есть вплоть до того, что там даже элементарные вещи, которые способствуют тому, чтобы волонтеры выполняли свою волонтерскую деятельность. И мы говорили о потребности волонтеров в психологической помощи и поддержке. Тоже как проблема, что на данном этапе, наверное, мы не можем в полной мере охватить, чтобы мы на сегодня могли сказать, что эта проблема закрыта. К сожалению, нет.
Thank you, Daria. Thank you, Daria. This was really, really useful for me, given that I'm doing this training session. I hope that during the training session, you will have the opportunity to understand how to assess the needs so we can relocate these short resources to where they are most needed, okay? And we will speak briefly about some tools of how to deal with our volunteers that are stressed out and that are burnout of everything that they have to do. So let's start. You can interrupt me whenever you want, okay, with questions. Just feel free to do that.
Imagine you live in a small town. You have lived here all your life. You don't have much, but it is enough. Suddenly, your whole life is swept away in an instant. You have to run. And even when you reach safety, you can't stop thinking about your losses. It's nearly impossible to imagine the future. Of course you need food, water, and a roof over your head. But psychosocial support and perspective are just as important. Support can take different shapes. You may want to share your experiences. Some people need special care. Additional attention may help children to cope with their feelings, to gain trust and make friends. Extra measures can help you feel secure again.
So these people have special needs, right? But how do we address them, and how do we identify them? First of all, it's really important for us to understand what a refugee is. Okay, we use in a freely way the term refugee, but refugee has a strict definition. Okay, a refugee is someone who is unable or unwilling to return to their country of origin, owing to a well-founded fear of being persecuted for, and this is really a list, okay? It's not a generalization. Reasons of race, religion, nationality, membership of a particular social group, or political opinion. This means that people fleeing from war do not qualify as refugees, okay? Because of that, and because people understood that this definition was really strict, we now have some other definitions that can complement this one. And the subsidiary protection is the definition of the legal protection that we give to most of the people fleeing from war. And I think that in most countries, This is the definition we gave to Ukrainian people. So the subsidiary protection is a international protection given to someone who does not qualify as a refugee, but has nevertheless a big reason to not return to their country because they fear for their lives. Okay. And there are another two definitions that are really important: the asylum seekers, so the people that are seeking for international protection but that haven't seen their process finalized yet, and the internally displaced people. And I think that in Ukraine, this should be the majority of people that you have, people that are fleeing the cities they lived in, but that are staying in the same country in order to try to seek safety. Is everything okay for now? Was this clear? Okay. But when we're talking about refugees, and in spite of all these definitions I just gave you, we will talk about refugees in a free sense, okay? And we will talk about these people fleeing their common place of residence in order to seek for some safety. We will use refugee as a general term, okay? And these people have some common problems and some specific issues that we should target when we're trying to help them. First of all, they have no doctor assigned, or they have no access to the medical records they once had, okay? And when these people arrive new cities or new countries, this is a problem. Most of the times they don't speak the same language. That doesn't happen in Ukrainian. They have difficulty to be familiar with the services, and they have all this trauma they have to deal with when they don't have the access to the health system. The social deprivation, cultural differences, this doesn't happen too with you. And sometimes the staff's attitude is kind of rude to some of these people. But the special needs, the most special needs, and the ones that are really transversal to refugees all around the world are these emotional characteristics. Because the migration journey, being it some kilometers in the same country, or being it 200 or 3 or 1,000 kilometers acrossing many countries, this migration journey is really hard. It can be hard because of the journey itself, and it can be hard because of everything that these people have been through, and because the grief they are passing in that moment. Okay, even if these people haven't lost anyone, even if a loved one hasn't died, to leave my life behind and to have to start in another place, to being forced to start in another place, is a kind of grief too. So these people have a lot of issues with settlement, with integration, with inclusion, and they have a higher prevalence of depression, anxiety, PTSD than most of the people in other countries. With all of this, we also have the lack of access to mental health services, because in some places those health services are off, okay, because of the conflict, and in other countries because they didn't have conquered that right yet, or because the country that receives them is overwhelmed itself and just can't give a proper answer to everyone in the population. So having all of this and not having the means to treat it will actually increase this PTSD. And how does this PTSD, right, or this post-traumatic stress, how does all this mental illness appear, and how can we identify it? And we can identify it in our refugees, in our internally displaced people, and also in our volunteers if they are dealing with a lot of violent scenarios, or with a lot of people that are in distress, okay? And we have some some key presentations of this mental illness, and I'll try to explain it to you. First of all, the feeling scared, and I think this is quite understandable, right? So if I'm mostly in danger, I will feel scared, and this can continue to happen even when I'm in a safe place. Okay, I can still continue to feel my heart racing, sweating a lot, shaking a lot. Okay, because my body was used to be on alert for a long time, and it is hard for my brain and for my body to shut all of that down. I can also try to avoid doing things that will put me in danger, or that I think that will put me in danger. Okay, and this means that I can start to avoid some people, that I can start to avoid some places, that I will try to avoid talking about some things that can start some memories. Okay, because I will do anything that I can to not go to that place again. Okay, to that place where I felt really scared. But going to that place where I felt really scared can also happen in an unconscious way, and those are called flashbacks. Okay, when something happens and I'm triggered, and I just go there again, all over again. Okay, we see these in movies and in TV series a lot, and I think that you are witnessing that in the people you support too. Something happens, it can be a word, it can be a noise, it can be something they see. Okay, and people will just start to imitate the behaviors they had when they were in danger. Okay, when I was in Greece, I had a kid that every time that a plane went by, he would just take cover. Okay, and these are things that start to be automatic for us. Obviously, these people that are really hurt and they pass through terrible things will have difficulty trusting people, and this can be really hard for you that are trying to help them. Okay, it's not something that is really targeted to you. It's not that they don't trust you. Okay, they are just having difficulty to trust someone, to trust other people, and to be dependable on others. And also the feelings of blame. Okay, this happened because I went to this place. This happened because I said something. This happened to that person because I asked her to go there. And this blaming yourself can really consume you. Other things that can happen are sadness, obviously. This anxiety can actually trigger some physical symptoms that are really real. Okay, they are actually real, and people can actually feel headaches and stomach aches, pains everywhere, or tingles everywhere, a pain in your chest that is really tightening something, or something in your throat and you just can't speak, or you just can't breathe, or you can't swallow. Okay, these physical symptoms are real. We are just being tricked by our brain, but they are very real, and people get really scared when this happens. You can also feel angry, obviously, because of everything that's happening. Actually, being angry is one of the phases when you're passing through grief. Okay, you can have trouble concentrating because you are not sleeping well, because you have nightmares or vivid dreams, or only because you are so stressed out, you are so tired, you are so emotionally exhausted that you just can't concentrate. Other thing that can happen is the dissociation. So it's like you don't feel yourself anymore. You don't feel like your body is yours. You just feel like you are seeing everything from up above, and things are happening and you are reacting, but you are not consciously reacting. Okay, everything okay? Does anyone have any doubts? No? Okay. But how can we address all of this, right? All of this that will happen to your beneficiaries, to the refugee people or to the internally displaced people, but will also happen to some of your volunteers and probably to some of you. So how can we address this? We can address this by having programs of prevention and promotion of a mental health environment that is positive. Okay, we can try to reinforce the connections of our organization to some mental health professionals or to some mental health services. We should try to identify in a timely way these triggers or these alert signs, so we can give these people the opportunity to be treated. Okay, and sometimes it is really hard to do that when you have a lot of work and you don't have a lot of time to be with your volunteers. But if you can make the time, a simple conversation from now and then, if you have the time to do that, will be important for you to understand which of your volunteers are okay and which of your volunteers are on the verge of breaking. Okay, because that is the first sign that we should tell them to talk to someone. And also, we should empower these people, okay, and tell all of these refugees, all of these internal displaced people, that they are really useful to society, that being in safety now is an opportunity to restart and to restart their lives somewhere, and that all of the things they knew how to do before the conflict, they still know how, and they can restart everything. Okay. Does any of you know psychological first aid? Psychological first aid are some clues of how we should deal with someone in distress. Okay. This is not something that can only be used by psychologists. This can be used by everyone that knows how to use it. Okay. In psychological first aid, these tips that we will see in this video will help you to deal with people in distress, and will help these people in distress to deal with everything in the long term. Okay, this has been proven. If we address correctly a person in distress, they will have more coping mechanisms to deal with the trauma in the future. Okay, so this is really important. It's really easy. Okay, we will try to present it in a simple way with topics. Okay, but it can be a game changer in the field. Okay.
Understanding how best to help people in distress can seem scary or hard, but it doesn't have to be. By using the principles of psychological first aid, we can help people who are in distress to feel calm and able to cope in difficult situations. This video will explain the 3 action principles of psychological first aid, provide how-to guidance, and give you tips from the experts. Psychological first aid is a model and approach that was developed by the World Health Organization and is used by many humanitarian actors and everyday people throughout the world. Psychological first aid can help in both emergency and non-emergency situations. The key factors to consider when deciding if you should provide support are whether a person is in distress and if the person needs and wants your help. Remember, not all people want or need psychological first aid. Psychological first aid is based on 3 action principles: look, listen, and link. It requires a special set of skills and knowledge which take practice to build. Let's look more closely at the 3 action principles. The first action principle of look involves assessing the situation to find out who needs help. Are there safety and security risks, including risks for the helper? And are there any life-threatening injuries which require immediate attention? By looking, we can observe and identify emotional reactions, which give us more detailed clues about who is in distress. People in distress may act differently from peers, be quiet or withdrawn, display unusual or out of character behavior, or have basic unmet needs. The second action principle of listen refers to the way the helper communicates. Listen is much more than hearing. It includes the helper's attitude and behavior, including how they pay attention and listen actively, accept feelings, and ask respectfully about needs and concerns. The last action principle of link usually has practical outcomes. Link includes giving information and helping people address immediate basic needs so they can cope better. The role of the helper is to assist the person to regain control of their situation and to help themselves. Link actions include helping a person access information, connecting someone in distress with loved ones and social supports, providing help to tackle practical problems, or facilitating access to other supports and services as needed. A key part of linking skills is for the helper to know and understand their own limits, both in terms of what help they can provide and how, when, and where they need to refer someone for help elsewhere. It is important that all links or referrals meet the 5 safe referral principles, which are do no harm, accessibility, dignity and respect, non-discrimination, and confidentiality.
So the psychological first aid, these tips that we have with looking, listening, and linking, okay? These are tips that we receive to know how to deal with people in distress. Having in consideration that we can only help someone who wants our help, okay? And that we should only address people with this posture when they are in distress, okay? Otherwise, it can seem paternalizing. Okay, so look, when something happens, if I'm the one giving help, if I'm one of the helpers, okay, what I should do first is to identify who needs help and who wants help, okay? And by looking, trying to identify emotions, trying to identify someone who can be coping or can be reacting to what is happening, and someone that is so overwhelmed with what is happening that it is just in shock or having a panic attack or having post-traumatic stress, and it is just retreated from the group, trying to deal with their emotions, okay? And when I do that, the first thing that I should look for is to see if basic needs are assured. What are basic needs? Security, okay? If where the people are and where I am, if it's a safe place, okay? If people are dressed, if they have water, and if they have food. Then we have the listen part. And the listen part, we use this verb because of the 3 L's, okay? Look, listen, link. But actually, the listening part is about how we behave, okay? And our posture is really important because when we are in distress, we are extra sensible to all the stimuli that we are receiving from the environment. So we have to assure that the helper is a good stimuli. It's a calming one, okay, a peaceful one. It's like a peace offer. So what does the listening part include? Our nonverbal communication, okay? We have to be extra careful with our tone of voice. We should be with a body language that is inclusive and that is trying to accommodate everyone, okay? And we have to pay attention to the other person, to understand their feelings, and trying to detach ourselves of some of the emotional displays, okay? The person can be angry, can be aggressive, for instance, and we have to be capable of understanding that all of that violence is not towards us, okay? Something happened that was really disruptive, and that person just needs some time to purge all of those feelings, okay? Probably that is not directed to us, even if with what they're saying, they're trying that it is. Okay, so we have to be extra extra zen, okay, and try to understand that what is happening there is just people dealing with one of the worst days of their lives, okay, without judgments, without trying to think, oh, this is not proportional to what happened, or oh, this person is so good and something terrible happened. We don't have to judge, okay, we just accommodate all of the feelings of the people we are helping. The third step is not to force people to share what they feel. Okay, people have the right to not share what they feel, what they've experienced, what they are thinking. Okay, and sharing or not sharing cannot be a criteria for receiving help. Okay, so we should give the space for people to share if they need and if they want to, but if they don't want to, then it's okay. We will just try to address the needs we can see, and that's it. And then we have the third link, the third step, linking. And with linking, we need practical results, okay? It's the linking part is something really on the field, okay? And to do so, our volunteers, the helpers, we should really know what is happening, okay? We should know where the bathroom is. We should know where people can get clothes. We should know where people can get water or food. We should know where people can take cover and sleep for a few days or for a few hours. Okay. If we don't have these informations, we will just create more frustration in the people we are helping. Okay, because they will ask us for some practical things and we won't know how to help them. Okay. Even if people don't ask us, we should give some information about the services that might be useful. And these ones I've just talked about are the common ones, okay? We should try to give this information in a non-intrusive way, okay? We should speak slowly and we should give just one information at a time, trying to read the other person expression, okay, and being really careful. If what I'm saying is just making the other person feel overwhelmed, then I should just stop and ask if they want me to come in another time, okay, because sometimes people just cannot process everything they are hearing or everything they are looking, okay. And then the third part of this third step is trying to establish contacts with those people's emotional support network, okay? Do you have any family member here? Do you have any friend I can call? Okay, because sometimes people are just alone in that place, but they have some important people for them that can help them moderate their feelings, process their emotions, that is really next to them. So if we have the opportunity to link all of these people with their loved ones, we should do that. Our important recommendations are the ones we saw in the video, okay? Just to remember, and because they are really important, we've listed them here, okay? Ensure accessibility. We should try to ensure that everyone has access to the basic needs, okay? We should not make promises that we cannot keep. And that happens a lot when people say, oh, please promise me that my husband is okay or that my kids are taken care of. We just can't make those kind of promises, okay? So what we should do is to say, I will do my best to know what is happening. I will do my best to give you some information in a moment. And I'm sure that everyone is doing their best so that this has the best outcome, okay? But we should not make promises. We should not discriminate, and we should do no harm, okay? That's why the psychological first aid helps us to deal with these people, because it helps us to not do harm. We should treat everyone with dignity and respect. Be careful to provide the correct information, okay? If I don't know something that is being asked to me, I should just say, okay, let me just check that with someone else and I will come back to you with the information, okay? Giving some information that is not correct, that I don't have, that I am not sure of, will just create more mess, okay? And it's not useful. Ensure confidentiality. The things people share with us should stay just between the two of us, okay? Knowing when to ask for help, and that this one is for the volunteers and is for the all the volunteer managers around here, okay? Knowing when to ask for help when I'm feeling too overwhelmed and when I can't deal with everything that is happening. And the last one, but one of the most important ones, because that one sets the motto for everything else we do. We should not forget that the ultimate goal is to help these people regain control of their lives, okay? It's not to contribute to a feeling of being powerless, is to empower them to regain control. We will just take a break now, okay? Just a 15-minute break. I will ask you to just turn your camera, and we will be back in 15 minutes, okay? As we've been seeing, volunteering with refugees can be a challenge, especially an emotional one. And now we will talk about the compassion fatigue syndrome. I think you will relate to this.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. Yeah. And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
So what makes something better is connection, but actually, when we spend a lot of time connecting with other people pain, this can be really overwhelming for us. So this syndrome of compassion fatigue or empathy fatigue, it really happens, okay? It can happen with volunteers and it can happen with volunteer managers. And it derives from the inability to find emotional recovery strategies. So the thing is, I am so used to deal with other people's pain, and I do it with so much feeling, and I try to connect so much with other people's pain that somewhere along the way, I just feel incapable of dealing with my own emotions because I will try to live other people's stories. And this compassion fatigue syndrome can have a lot of ways to be shown. Okay, the main ones are reliving experiences. For instance, I hear someone's life story, and that just sticks with me, and I am just reliving on and on the story that people told, that person told me. Okay, and that situation does not leave my mind. I am just ruminating those thoughts. Okay, other symptoms that these people can show are the avoidance or distancing, and we actually see this in a lot of health professionals that's for a long time just dealt with really difficult and hard situations, and in one time, in one day of their professional life, they just stop caring. Okay, so people just try to disconnect emotionally from the situations and try to disconnect emotionally from what's happening in order to be able to relate with people, in order to be able to do their jobs, in order to be able to be useful. Okay, they just disconnect with the emotional part and they just do the practical tasks. Other way of showing this compassion fatigue syndrome is anxiety. Okay, so being continuously stressed, can't be able to sleep because is all the time thinking about what happened, about what hurt, about what is left to do. Okay, some panic attacks, some minor manifestations of anxiety, some physical ones as we've talked about. So the stomach aches, the chest pain, the inability to swallow, the headaches. But how can we deal with this, right? Which are the strategies that we can use individually or in our organization to deal with this? Because the thing is, we really want volunteers that connect with our beneficiaries. Okay, we really want volunteers that are empathy champions. Okay, because we know that this amazing thing about volunteering is that people really share who they are, and this linking of human beings is just so powerful. So if we want volunteers to be like that, right, and we recruit them as such, then how can we deal with this when something is just taken too far? And this is not anyone's guilt. Okay, it's not guilt. It's not volunteers' guilt or the volunteer manager's guilt. It's just something that happens within that context. Okay, the conflict context, the countries or cities context, and also the person's context. We can have volunteers that personally are going through some heavy stuff and just dealing with another more emotional challenge is just too much. So how can we deal with this? Individually, we can try to convince people to consult an expert if that is accessible to them. We should try to identify the root of the problem in order to find strategies to change the way people are dealing with some processes. Okay. In terms of social network, we should foster positive relationships and tell our volunteers that they really should take their free time to be with friends, to be with family, and to take their minds off what's happening in the volunteer context. And in our organization, what we can do to prevent this compassion fatigue syndrome is to clarify roles. I should be able to tell my volunteer, okay, so this is your role and these are your responsibilities. So please just don't worry with anything else because we have other services or we have other volunteers that are trying to solve all the other problems, okay? Trying to compartmentalize the refugees' needs, actually. Creating a recognition system that tells our volunteers that we are really grateful for their work. Implementing fatigue preventing programs, which we can have meetings with all the volunteers and a psychologist, or just meetings with volunteers where they can share what they're feeling, what they're thinking, what has been really overwhelmed to them, what was really positive to them, and gave them fuel to another more 20 hours of volunteering. And we should try to have some activities, some training sessions about conflict management, so that when people are getting really stressed out, really burn out of their volunteer work, the conflicts just arise. Like, it's really easy to have conflict when I'm not okay. It's really difficult for me to manage the conflicts when I am not okay. So we should try to train our volunteers and to train all of our staff in our organization to deal with the conflict management. Okay, how should I do this? But what to do when this happens, when we have a volunteer that it's clearly fatigued, it's clearly burnt out in their task, but is not able to admit it, or doesn't want our help, or doesn't want to seek help, and is actually hurting all the project. It's hurting the other volunteers. It's unconsciously doing harm to our beneficiaries. How can we deal with this? If it's a volunteer that is really useful for us, then, and that has capabilities, and that has proven that has been someone really useful for the organization, and if we understand that this person is only feeling overwhelmed, then we should direct them to roles that require less contact with beneficiaries, or that are less emotionally demanding, and give them time for them to process their emotions and to be able to find coping mechanisms. At the same time, we should try to activate an emotional support network, or to refer them to mental health services, okay? But if we know that we have a volunteer that is not okay, we should not stick with that information and do nothing about it, okay? It's really important to try to convince that person to ask for help, or at least to share their difficulties with someone they love. Are we okay? No doubts? Okay. But how do we assess the needs during the crisis, right? Because something happens and we have to react. And some of the times we don't have an emergency plan in our drawer that we can take out and just implement. Sometimes we just have to go with the flow and try to react to everything that is happening because we weren't counting with that emergency situation that is happening.
No one who experiences a disaster is left untouched by it. A key priority during crises is to protect and provide for people's mental health and psychosocial well-being. Every individual will experience the same event in a different way and have a different capacity to cope. The nature and scale of the disaster or conflict will, of course, be huge factors, but also, for example, whether the person has pre-existing psychological conditions and vulnerabilities. Age is another crucial factor. A child's physical, emotional, and social development plays a key role in their experience of an event, with adversity having a direct impact on their daily lives. Because of this, humanitarian workers need to be alert to the environment, namely who is not recovering and what specific support they need. The core principles for interventions are: 1. The promotion and protection of an individual's human rights and dignity. 2. Encourage those well enough, including children and youth of an appropriate age, to participate in relief efforts. 3. Avoid potential risks such as encouraging dependency. Remember, do no harm. 4. Take advantage of available resources and the capacity for self-help. 5. Provide integrated support systems instead of standalone services. 6. Use a multi-layered support structure. This means advocating for basic services which are safe, socially appropriate, and protect dignity. Activating social networks and engaging the individual's family, where possible, to provide supportive, child-friendly spaces. Providing basic support services with no specialised content for a specific target group. This requires looking out for children with basic and urgent needs, listening to a child's concerns and calming those in distress, linking children with the social support and services they require. A fourth layer includes offering access to specialised clinical support from mental health practitioners where needed. In the immediate aftermath of a disaster, it is also important to address social considerations, such as providing simple, sensitive, reliable information, supporting family tracing and reunification, involving communities in the design and re-establishment of religious, social and community facilities, allowing time for culturally appropriate ceremonies and funerals, providing appropriate activities for children, resuming education and engaging communities. You can also make an immediate difference in the facilitation of psychosocial provisions. For example, ensuring that children and adults with serious mental health conditions are referred to the appropriate services, working with the existing healthcare system and assisting with the provision of drugs and treatments, supporting those with emotional stress through listening and compassion, and providing training and promoting non-intrusive community-based emotional support. As you see, there is a lot you can offer. So let's work together to help those in need of psychosocial support, encourage the correct treatment, and make sure that your response is always relevant to the individual you're helping. For more information, visit.
But how do we do that, right? How are we able to identify which need does each individual have? We will present to you a tool that was created by the UNHCR. I didn't find it translated into Russian. I'm sorry. I will present it in English, but you will hear the translation of me explaining the document. But we have a tool that is already that was already created, that has been tested, and that has been used for a long time by an organization that is really used to deal with all of this, the UNHCR. So everything that I will present to you right now will be based on that document. In the end of the training session, you will receive a web link that will have a lot of documents that are relevant for this topic, and that you can consult. Some of them are in Russian, others are in English, but I'm sure you can find them in Russian. So, what are the key objectives of a needs assessment when we are in a crisis situation? The first one is to ensure that the humanitarian aid is based on needs, okay? And we've talked about this when we talked about the psychological first aid. We should only help someone who wants our help, and we should only help someone that needs help, okay? So this is the first one, to understand which needs we have so that we can use our humanitarian aid in a proportional way. To ensure that humanitarian aid promotes and does not undermine safe local coping mechanisms, okay? So the humanitarian aid, the work that our organizations do, cannot put in risk the balance that the community is trying to find when these things are happening. We should try to identify and understand the needs of different populations. We should first try to identify the different vulnerable populations and then trying to address the needs of each specific group. And try to make sure that decisions on humanitarian aid are based on facts, okay? not in hearsay, not in rumors, but in facts. And how do we collect those facts? How do we know what is happening in the most objective way possible? We can use this checklist, okay? The needs assessment for refugee emergencies, the NARE checklist, is the tool that I was talking about. It was created by the UNHCR, and it is used to assess the needs into a multi-sectoral way, okay? Trying to understand the needs of all the community and all the groups that are taking part in the community. It is not supposed to be used for a long period of time. It is supposed to be used in a moment of time to assess the needs in that moment, okay? And it can be used in the future too, but it's something that is really, it's just to take a picture of what is happening in that moment. It does not have the purpose to play the movie of the conflict, but to take a picture of that moment, okay? It's a one-off activity, and it's not an ongoing monitoring system that we use all the time, because it's really time-consuming, and we'll just diverge our efforts from the real needs. This is a pocket version of this is a pocket version of the NARE instrument. Okay, we have the complete version in the folder that will be sent to you. But I think that the pocket version will be really useful now, just for you to take some key information. Okay, so we have some questions that we really have to answer when we are trying to assess needs in a certain context. Okay, and to know which are the needs. Okay, we have two main processes that we can take. The direct observation, okay, so we can and we should go around, watch people and see what is lacking, okay, and we can also ask some useful resources from the community. Each and every community has their community leaders, people that, because of their role in the community or because of their personality, or because of their history in the community, are key informants, and that can be really useful for our work in the field. Okay, so interviewing these people and trying to extract from them important information will be really useful for us, because they can tell us how was the community life before, and they can give us meaningful indications about the priorities that we should address, about the vulnerabilities. They can tell us which populations were most vulnerable before the emergency and should be even more vulnerable now. And where can we find these key informant people? Where should we find them? They may include the government authorities, the local leaders, as I told you, the elderly, the police, the army, the firefighters, some NGOs, and some international and national relief teams, or some NGOs working there, some health professionals, and talking to them without any judgment, without any preconceived ideas, will give us a snapshot of what is happening in the field in that moment. Because what's happening in the field in that moment has different phases, okay? When we have a disaster, and the disaster can be a social emergency context, can be a conflict, can be a problem with a hurricane or some flood. When we have the disaster, the event, we have different phases, and those different phases will give us different priorities to attend to, okay? We have the first 3 days when something happened and people are just needing basic stuff, okay? to take cover, to be safe, to have food, to have water. Then we have the first 2 weeks where we are still trying to understand what happened and what is needed. In phase 3, we are more capable of starting to address some specific needs. And in phase 4, there is onwards. So 1 month after the disaster, we can actually start to define a development strategy instead of a crisis one. This method can be used in whichever the phase, but it will have more results if done in phase 1 and 2. But how do we collect this information in an objective way? Because we've told you that our humanitarian aid should be based on facts and not in hearsay. But now we are telling you that you can collect information by direct observation or by interviewing some important people in the community. So how can we filter the information we receive and trying to be the most objective possible? And what can happen, one way of doing that is for you to use both methods, okay? Because direct observation will be tainted by my preconceived ideas too, because I am the only one observing, I am the only one taking notes, and I will interpret everything that I see according to everything I have in my mind. So if I collect both methods, and if I collect my direct observation with the input that people from the community have, I can try to be as objective as possible. And I should address the following questions. What are the key issues and priorities? What are the priorities? This happened, and what should we address first? Okay. Who is most affected or vulnerable? Because those should be the first to receive help. How many are they? So that I know how to relocate my resources. Where are they? Is that accessible? Is that not accessible? If that is not accessible, can I retrieve people to some place where I can assess with my volunteers? How bad or severe are the issues? And why is it that way? Okay. The why, to get to the why, we really need the key informant interviews, okay? Because people knowing the context will help us understand why something is happening that way. And that can also help us orienting our way of doing things in order to respect what is happening. During this direct observation or these interviews, during this phase of collecting information, what is really important is not to forget some questions that can be really useful for us to define a plan in a midterm. Okay, so what has changed over time or remained the same? Because what remained the same probably are some permanent things in the community where the community will be resilient and probably try that stays the same. Okay, what is surprising, important, different about one group, one time, one place, about something that happened? What goes different from the common pattern? Okay, and if it didn't get worse, why didn't it? Was it just like this and it was impossible to get worse than this? Or the disaster was not as bad as we think, and that is why something did just stay the same? Okay. And after we do this diagnosis of the field, we should think, okay, so what's the next level of detail required? What I know now is enough for me to define my strategy and to put my people in the field, having their profiles of function working? Or do I need more detail of this particular thing or this particular thing in order to get somewhere and to get some results? When we are observing, okay, when we are doing this direct observation and trying to be as objective as we can, it's really important for us to use not only what we see, but also what we smell and what we hear, okay? If we have the whole sewer system of a city compromised, the smell will be terrible, okay? If we don't have the services to collect all the garbage, the smell will be terrible. And that means that we will have an environment that will create the opportunity to diseases that we usually don't have. To hear, because when I'm passing by and no one knows me, people will continue to have their lives and to have their conversations. And what I can hear is really important for me to have a perception of what is happening, okay? And to see, and here we just use the same characteristics that we had in the psychological first aid. To know, to look and to see how people relate with one another, to understand who are the ones being the caregivers and who are the ones more vulnerable, to understand which conditions do people have, which activities are they looking for, how are the conditions of housing and properties and livestock and assets, how are the daily lives of people being and which difficulties are they encountering now. How are the public services, the sanitation systems and infrastructures working, if they are or if they're not working, if kids have a functioning school where to go, if people have health posts where they can go to if they're sick, if people have water points with potable water to drink. To look and to see if people are having coping mechanisms, or if we are just having a lot of people in distress and anxiety and having post-traumatic stress symptoms. Understanding if our public health issues are being addressed or not. Do we have the conditions to put our waste into the right place? Do we have the conditions to keep the place as clean as possible, to keep our water as clean as possible? To understand, and this is really important by looking and by hearing, to understand which are the power relationships and which are the tensions within the community. Because when I'm working with the community, I have to understand who can be my ally and who do I have to convince to be my ally, okay? And to understand why do we have segments of population that are being more affected than others, and trying to understand why. To do all of this, it is really important for me to collect data without my preconceived notions or expectations. This is really, really hard. And that is why you can complement this with the interviews, okay? I should also be active in observations, okay? Trying to use all my senses, trying to record my information in order that I can organize it and then compare it with other people, compare it with the interviews too, respecting the local culture in understanding that if I'm an observant, I should not disrupt the normal functioning of the community, being sensitive to the local concerns, even if the concerns of the people of the community are not mine, even if I think that their concerns are not proportional or are not important in that moment, I should always be sensitive to their concerns and to the things that most worry them. Being aware of the capacities of the community and not forgetting that the community should be empowered to heal herself, to heal itself, okay? Not forgetting to ask permission to take photos or to ask questions and then take our notes, okay? People in distress, we can't assume that people in distress are automatically authorizing us to collect evidence of what is happening, okay? And obviously being careful in conflict areas and trying to put my safety first, because I cannot help anyone if I am not safe. When we're talking about the interviews, we have some other cares, some other recommendations to have, okay? And trying to collect information in the most objective way, it means that I will try to interview people from different segments, people from different backgrounds that have different responsibilities. I have to try to be as inclusive as possible in terms of ages, of gender, of religious or ethnic minorities, in order for me to get the bigger picture of the community and not only the picture of the majority of the community. I cannot forget that the people that were most vulnerable before the crisis will probably be the people that are most vulnerable after the crisis too, okay? So I should not only rely on information from official sources, because sometimes official agencies do not have the time to do this needs assessment, okay? I should also talk to people and listen to their concerns and to their problems. And I cannot forget that when I have a displaced community going somewhere, I also have a host community. And if I want everything to go into balance, I have to use both ends here. And I have to talk with the leaders from both communities, and I have to address the needs of both of the communities too. How can I do this? How can I do this? I have to ask permission, okay? I have to ensure that people understand that they are talking to me and that they are giving me information that will be useful for me to define a plan, a strategic plan within my organization. I should ask permission to take notes or to record the interview. I should also make sure that the way that I am collecting information is somehow compatible with the notes I have been taking during my direct observation. I have to be sensitive, and I have to accommodate the feelings of the people being interviewed, because probably some sensible questions will be asked, and I have to be ready for people's reaction to those questions. And I have to be also capable of separating the facts that people are telling me from the emotions that people are reporting to me too, okay? I should be really, really careful and really sensible with questions that may increase stigma or that may put people in danger, okay? The things that I need to know are different from the things that I want to know, okay? Sometimes I'm really curious about something and I really want to know that information, but if it's not actually super relevant for what I'm doing and for my role in the field, maybe I should not ask that question. And I should also try to have a translator or an interpreter or someone that can make this bridge between what I am saying and what the people are answering to me. These interviews should happen in a safe place that is convenient, especially for them, for the interviewed, okay? And we should try to adapt to their needs. The key informants should be chosen strategically, as we've been talking about. And this means that during the interviews, I may collect information that alerts me for the need to talk to another key informant person, okay? And I should be open to this changing process. This doesn't mean that I will be interviewing people for weeks and weeks and weeks and I will not define a plan to work on the field, okay? It just means that I should be alert for, okay, someone told me about this and I didn't have anyone from this representative group that can talk to me about this in the first person. So maybe I should look for the key informants from this perspective. I should also guarantee that people are not expecting preferential treatment just because they are giving their help and just because they are being interviewed in order to assess the needs. And I should also ensure that all the data that is collected is anonymous and that the confidentiality is guaranteed. And that's it. I don't know if you have any doubts. or any contributions. All of the documents used for this presentation are in this folder, okay, right here. Some of them are in Russian. The ones related with post-traumatic stress and with dealing with all these emotions, they're in Russian too, okay. Others are only in English, but I think that you can actually online just translate it. The Russian won't be perfect, but probably it can give you some tips of what is written there. Does anyone want to share something? Does anyone have any doubt? No? Then thank you. If you have some doubt that you didn't express here, but you really want us to address, you will have our email, and I will be glad to help you. So thank you.
Thank you so much. It was great, and да, и очень много нюансов, о которых вроде как мы где-то слышали, да, но настолько все четко разложено и настолько все просто объяснено, да, гораздо проще это применять в жизни, вот когда ты понимаешь это на таком на простом бытовом уровне.
Thank you so much. I support Dasha with her speech. Thank you very much.
Если бы у нас эта информация была, возможно, чуть раньше, либо мы года 3 назад хотя бы начали к этому готовиться, может быть, первые 2 недели, которые, как бы сказали, являются такими самыми максимально сложными, может быть, этот процесс у нас бы занял 2 недели, а не 1,5 месяца, поэтому информация сейчас действительно как бы раскладывается по полочкам, и, возможно, те действия, которые мы здесь в Молдове производили в рамках помощи беженцам, они, да, структурированы, исходя из того, что вы говорите, но мы сами как бы не понимали, то, что оно оказывается еще хоть как-то структурировано. Нам казалось, что это полный хаос.
Yes, unfortunately, you have a lot of experience with this, right? So it's I'm really happy that having these lists can help you work with your challenging tasks.
Мы очень все надеемся, что в принципе вообще больше никакие ни пандемии, ни военные непонятные ситуации не будут врываться в нашу жизнь, но мне кажется, волонтерские организации должны быть готовы к любому кризису, потому что кризисы бывают разные, как вы уже говорили, поэтому спасибо большое за информацию.
You're welcome.
So, do you have any more questions about the first session?
No, thank you.
Wolfgang, do you have the link to the Google disk to save the files?
Yes, I can put it on the chat if you want, but I think it will be sent to you.
Okay. If you can right now to do this, it will be good for us.
Yeah.
Anna, you're writing it in the chat? Yeah, okay.
It is.
Да, Даша, мы уже вам, если что, если вдруг вы потеряете, мы перешлем, если что.
Супер, спасибо.
Yulia, also, they will receive a copy of the recording and the slides as well. So that will be sent out to everyone. And it would be good, I'm not sure if you've already done this, but to remind everyone of the next session date and time before we close. And topic as well.
Yeah, that was the last point. So thank you for being with us in this session. Thank you, Anna, for and your colleagues for preparing the content of the first session. And we're looking ahead for the second session next Thursday, same day, same time at 5 o'clock your local time in Moldova. And the topic is crisis volunteer management, and Leora and Mimi from Israel are preparing this next session. And Leora was with us in this session. And just to get, I think, as I'm responsible for the last session, to get a feeling of all the participants and to what we should present for the next sessions. So just be online for the next session, next Thursday, May 26th, at 5 o'clock local time in Moldova. Crisis volunteer management with Leora and Mimi. So then I will close the session. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for your interest. Being with us, very interested and in so much numbers. And I just can wish you for the next weeks and as I fear the next month, just that the situation which will become clearer and perhaps we get a kind of peace in the Ukraine. And just to know that we are with you and all the Ukrainian people are in our thoughts, especially here in Germany as well, because we have so many Ukrainian refugees here already. And the people are really helping and coming together and helping the refugees from the Ukraine, and to support all the other ones. And even the Ukrainian refugees are engaging in volunteering already here in their new situation as well. So that is kind of solidarity of the people here in the neighbor countries, I think, and solidarity of the refugees with one another already here. So thank you for being with us. Thank you for the preparation. Thank you for the content to the teachers, trainers, and thank you, Jessica from my Ayave office for the technical support. So thank you and goodbye till next week.
Goodbye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.